Go back to sleep. Boy, oh boy, do I have an experience to share with all of you today. This happened earlier this year during spring break. For quick reference, I'm a sophomore in college, and I live with one other roommate, who we will call Samantha. Anyways, I was working the night shift at McDonald's, and I didn't get home until almost 1 in the morning. By the time I arrived, I'm exhausted, tired, eyes heavier than a 100-pound dumbbell. I couldn't wait to get into bed. But before I did so, I stepped into the shower to try to get the smell of grease and french fries off of my skin. While I'm in the shower, I heard the distinct sound of my bedroom door being opened, followed by footsteps. Assuming it was Samantha, I call her name, to which I get no reply. It was a bit strange since she normally would respond, but I assumed she was just grabbing my phone charger. She had told me earlier in the morning that hers had stopped working, and thus I told her she was free to use mine. As for not responding, I explained this away as the sound of the shower muffling my voice. So about 10 minutes later, I step out of the shower, I dry myself and I change into my pajamas, and finally, I lay in bed. Here's when I noticed something. My charger was still plugged into my outlet. Well, that was funny. I look around my room trying to see if perhaps Samantha had grabbed something else. Everything looked untouched. Strange. Maybe I'd imagined the footsteps. Either way, I knocked out almost immediately. Now, I don't know how long I must have been out for, but at one point, I was awoken by movement in my bed. Just so you know, I have no pets, and Samantha has her own bed, thus I found the movement quite bizarre. I slowly opened my eyes, and what I saw laying next to me was one of the scariest sights of my life. There, staring back at me, with one of the most confused expressions I'd ever seen, was a homeless guy. I was still somewhat out of it, but I do remember mumbling, "Who are you, and what are you doing in my bed?" I recall a simple reply as the man whispered back,
"Go back to sleep."
Hearing that, I snap out of my drowsiness, jump out of my bed, and I grab the pepper spray that was on my nightstand. Who the hell are you? Get out of my house, now! The man pretty much noped out of the bed. He ran out of the room, and seconds later, I hear the front door slam open, and then close. Once I no longer heard him, I head over to Samantha's room, only to see it was empty. I now had clarification. I'd heard footsteps in the shower, and it wasn't Samantha. Funny enough, she texted me just 5 minutes after the homeless man ran out of my home. She told me she was going to stay at her boyfriend's house. Well, once I told her what happened, I called the police, and they take my statement when they got there. To this day, I'm absolutely frightened anytime I'm home alone. They never did find the man, but I just hope he never shows up again, because next time, I'll have no problem using my pepper spray. Edit. A lot of people were wondering how the man had gotten into the home to begin with. I forgot to include this, but we have a 2-car garage that's attached to our home. The garage door is the kind you use a remote in order to open. Sadly, it had been broken, and we had to resort to opening it by hand. This meant that the homeless man probably tried opening it out of curiosity, and he managed to successfully make his way inside after closing the door behind him. I believe I'd forgotten to lock the kitchen door, which is attached to the garage. So, I believe that explains it. This happened roughly 2 years ago, December to be exact, when my parents had been out doing some Christmas shopping. I recall it was snowing that evening, and I was home alone with my cat. Now, I never had a problem being home alone. In fact, I invited the opportunity any time it arose. It gave me an excuse to be lazy, seeing as my parents were, and still are, pretty strict. Seriously, I can't even play video games for long before the dad says, "Get off of the game, it's gonna rot your mind." Gotta love the parents. Anyways, I was in bed with my cat watching Konosuba on my iPad, when my stomach started to growl. The munchies were here. So, I get up from my blanket and a pillow fortress of a bed, and I start heading over to the kitchen, cat in tow. Once I was in the kitchen, I started preparing a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, as my cat jumps up to the counter and stares out the window. Now, I wasn't really paying attention at first, since I still had my AirPods in, but when I paused the episode I was watching, I happened to hear my cat meowing. This wasn't any normal meowing like the kind he makes when he's hungry. This was the kind he makes when he's angry, as he started to hiss. I could see all the hairs on his back stand up, and he started clawing at the window. Assuming he had seen a wild squirrel, I ignore his behavior, and I go to take a seat at the kitchen table. A minute or so passes, and he's still staring out the window doing his menacing meowing and his hiss routine. I was starting to get a bit annoyed, so I call him over. Nothing. Okay, this was suspicious. Let me see what the big deal was, I tell myself. I head over to the window, but all I'm able to see was darkness. Seriously, I had no clue what was wrong with my cat. Nonetheless, I grab him, and I start heading back to my room. However, I'm interrupted when all of a sudden, one of the motion-activated lights turns on. Nervously, I take a peek out the window, and this was for the first time this evening. I was able to see a man in a black hoodie holding what looked like a Bowie knife. My immediate thought was he had seen me, but he just walks over to the other side of my backyard. This was the point where I take out my cell phone and I call 911.
911, what's your emergency?
The woman on the other end calmly stated.
Hi, yes, I'm calling because there's a guy, he's got a knife, he's walking around my backyard. Could you please send some police officers?
I told her, trying to act as calm as possible.
Sure, honey, we'll have somebody go check it out for you. Are your windows and doors locked?
While I was talking to this woman on the phone, I watched the man disappear over my backyard fence. I thought to myself, thank goodness, he was gone. However, things were about to escalate. When I went over to my room and I locked myself in there with my cat, I heard the sound of a window open. Right away, I got the instant chills because I recognized that sound. One of the downstairs windows was notorious for not closing properly, and it was a fear I had ever since I'd seen The Creep. The window makes this really loud squeak sound, which indicated entry. I get the courage to quietly open my bedroom door nonetheless, and sure enough, I can hear heavy footsteps walking in the downstairs living room.
He's in my home. Are the police almost here?
I whispered with a sense of urgency.
Okay, remain in your room and don't open it unless the officers tell you to do so.
I then remember her whispering to who I assumed was somebody else in the same room as her.
Okay, sweetie, the police are there. Whatever you do, stay in your room and don't hang up the call.
What happens next was a series of loud yelling between police officers and the guy who broke in. After a few minutes, one of the officers walks up to my room and he tells me it was okay to come out. The lady on the phone told me it was okay to hang up. And soon enough, I'm speaking with the police. Naturally, I had many questions, as my entire living room was a mess. Drawers had been tossed to the ground, and there were a bunch of muddy boot prints. When all was said and done, the man was arrested, and I was left with quite a bit of paranoia. By the way, the man had used the knife to slash the window screen of that one window I mentioned. That's how he managed to get inside. I believe he was scouting my home, which might explain why my cat had been acting funny 30 or so minutes before he broke in. Nonetheless, my dad installed iron bars on all the windows, and we got an alarm system. We haven't had any issues since. This happened just a few months ago. I was taking care of my friend's pets while herself and her husband had gone out for vacation. I really didn't want to do it at first, since I was busy with school and work, but I couldn't resist the extra cash. Besides, all I really had to do was feed her 2 parakeets and feed her cat, which I was already friends with. Such a sweetheart. Anyways, I'll quickly mention, she lives in one of those private, closed-off communities where everybody knows each other. It's very rare for there to be a disturbance. Last time I remember her telling me there were some drunk college students singing karaoke at like 3 a.m. Of course, that was more funnier than scarier. Now, my friend told me I could stay in the guest bedroom if I wished. Going on to further state, any food in the fridge was mine to warm up. She actually prepared me this really awesome chicken Alfredo pasta that I devoured like a lion, but I think I'm getting too ahead of myself with all these details. Fast forward to the second night. I just gotten off of work, and I was going to pick up my girlfriend, who promised to keep me company while I was doing the pet sitting. We pretty much watched movies in the guest bedroom the whole evening, while the cat sat on my girlfriend's lap. I want to say around 3 a.m., I'm waking up needing to use the restroom really badly. I recount the glow of the TV was illuminating the room, and I could hear the slight breeze of the ceiling fan above. I remember I crawled out of bed and I walked over to the guest bathroom. I was in there for about 2 or so minutes when I happened to hear a door close in the house. Naturally, at around midnight and with nobody else in the home, I assumed it was my girlfriend getting up to get something. Anyways, once I exit the restroom, she's still laying in bed. However, the cat was now scratching and meowing at the guest bedroom door, which was closed. Either way, I crawl back into bed, but only moments later, I start to hear footsteps walking around in the house. I got a bit nervous, so I shake my girlfriend awake. "Emily, wake up. Wake up, Emily," I told her, as she slowly stumbles out of sleep. "What is it? What's wrong?" I think someone's in the house." As soon as I said that, more footsteps, and I jumped into action. I quickly went to lock the bedroom door, as my girlfriend was soon on the line with police.
Hi, we're calling because we think somebody broke into our home.
While my girlfriend is talking to them, I went ahead and grabbed the only thing I could use to defend us, a prop Winchester rifle that was hanging above the bed. A minute or so passes of whispering, when all of a sudden, we hear footsteps right outside the door. I shush my girlfriend quiet, as both of us hear the doorknob being moved back and forth. We've pretty much got chills running down her spine, all the while in the most intimidating voice I could muster up. I shout out, "I'm armed, and if you think you're getting in here in one piece, you've got another thing coming to you." The doorknob stops moving momentarily, and we both sigh a breath of relief. However, 10 seconds later, the person, or persons outside the door, start kicking at it, almost as if they were trying to break it down. Again, I'm shouting, trying to fight back nerves, when we suddenly heard police sirens approaching the street.
Damn, they called the police. Let's go.
We then heard footsteps echo their way out, before things went quiet. The lady relayed to us that the police had caught the two just seconds after they exited the home. We confirmed this statement, because when we look out the bedroom window, we can see the officers begin to handcuff the two. Backpacks were laying next to them, which we later found out contained valuables stolen from the home. By now, we were safe to leave the room, and we met with an officer halfway down my friend's hallway. We explained we had been pet sitting, and they told us it was good we had called when we did. It turned out the two that had broken in were recently released from jail after robbing a bank some time ago. Nonetheless, we had quite a scare that evening, and I admittedly get nervous whenever I hear a noise when I'm home alone. Hopefully, you'll never have to experience something like this.
First off, I want to apologize for any grammar mistakes, as English is not my native language. I'm in foster care, and I recently moved in the basement of a house in a nicer neighborhood. Around the house there are a lot of big houses, but there's not a lot of traffic. My room is in the basement of the house, and my view is into the backyard. There's a motion-activated light, but it only works a quarter of the time. Anyways, I'm an insomniac, so I'm always up way later than the couple I live with. It was late at night, around 3 a.m., so it was very dark outside, and I was in my room, playing the night away on my guitar. A little lamp was on, and I had a window cracked open. Now, I'm not an anxious guy, but for some reason, I felt like something was off. Like I was being watched. I brushed it off because the motion-activated light hadn't turned on, and I couldn't see anything or anyone in the thick darkness outside. At some point, I stopped playing and went to take a piss, and as I came back into the room, I noticed that it was way cooler than when I left. Again, I brushed it off, until I saw that my window had been pushed open. There's a security chain on my window, but in my sleep-deprived idiocy, I just wrote it off as my cat coming inside to eat while I went to the bathroom. Before I moved in where I live now, I lived in a seedy, high-crime area, so I'm always hyper-alert at night. After seeing that, I went to take a look just to be safe, and that's when I saw it. There was a person a few meters away from my fucking window. Now, I'm not a big guy, but I've been in my fair share of fistfights and physical arguments, so I wasn't really worried about him beating me up. He obviously knew I'd spotted him, as we had made eye contact before I sprinted for the window. I got there a little before him, but he somehow managed to get his fingers inside before I slammed the window down on his fingers with all my might, hearing a horrible crack as the heavy window hit his hand. He didn't try to retract his hand or say anything at first, but when I cracked it open to do it again, he quickly pulled away and yelped in pain. I secured the windows, and he stood there with his bleeding hand held close to his body, with his eyes firmly locked on mine for about 10 seconds, before he ran off in the direction of the front of the house. I ran upstairs as quickly as I could, but he was nowhere to be seen. I woke up the couple, but not before I checked all windows and doors, and they called the police while I checked everything again and turned on the lights in the house. The police took swabs of the blood on my window frame, but it didn't match anything in their system. No one went to the hospital in a 100-kilometer radius with matching injuries in the following 5 days. To this day, I don't know who that was that tried to break in, or if he's still around. The thing that bothers me the most is that he didn't run away when I first spotted him, and I don't know how long he'd been out there, lurking, spying on me in the darkness. So creepy garden lurking guy, let's not meet again, and I hope your hand is severely fucked up.
So around 10 or 11 this morning, I was about to go for a run, but beforehand, I was just chilling in the kitchen. I'd already been up for a couple of hours at this point, had breakfast, etc., etc. When out of the corner of my eye, something caught my attention. And when I looked over at it, it seemed that somebody with long blonde hair just moved out of view of the window. I tried to look around the corner from both windows that I could look out of, and nothing. I thought nothing of it. Could have been my cat or something, but then again it seemed like a different colour, and it looked more like a head of hair and not a cat. A few minutes later, a couple of my cats were waiting outside a different window, but were looking straight at the corner of the house where I saw this blonde thing move to. I caught the cat's attention, but then they looked right back there, which was strange, but oh well, I just carried on and went for my run. When I got back, my sisters wanted to chat, and they said to me, "Hey, do you know what happened with Dad last night?" I said no, and they proceeded to tell me that something freaked him out a bit considering what happened that morning. They told me that my dad came into their room at around 11 and asked them, "Hey, did you guys bring another girl with?" They'd been out at a music event. After my sisters said no, my dad went as white as milk apparently. He told them that when my two sisters came up the stairs, he saw a third girl follow them up the stairs, a few steps behind them. They both went into their separate rooms, and the third girl paused at the top of the stairs and then proceeded to go into my sister's room. My dad was confused at first, but Thought it could have just been one of my sister's friends, as they usually have some over after these events. But no, it was actually nobody. And the weird thing is that this third girl was also blonde, like the thing that I saw briefly go past my window this morning. Now, I had not known about what my dad saw, and neither did he know what I saw. My other sister then comes out and says that a few weeks ago, she thought that she saw a blonde girl go across the landing at the top of the stairs outside my parents' bedroom, but as she just woke up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, she just thought that she was being all weird and stuff. Anyway, our family obviously thinks that this is some really spooky stuff, but do you guys have any suggestions on what we might need to do next?
I just started my freshman year of college. I'm going to a college out of my home state, and no one I know is going to the same university as me, which means that I'm going to be rooming with a total stranger. Pretty normal, right? Well, that's what I thought. When I met my roommate, who I'm going to be referring to as DJ, she seemed nice enough. Her parents seemed nice enough too. Everything was going fine for the first couple of weeks, but then DJ's odd habits began emerging. I noticed that every time I would sit at my desk, she would always move from wherever she was to sit on the floor right behind me. And I mean every time. The first few times I thought it was just coincidental because it happened when she would be entering the room from her last classes. I thought that maybe she just wanted to relax by sitting on the floor. Weird, yes, but plausible. But no. Then the other scenarios began happening. She has a beanbag set right by next to me, so close that it's touching me, and this is her favorite spot that she always sits there to do her homework and whatnot. If I decide I want to sit at my desk, she'll actually move from the beanbag and then the floor behind me. Sometimes she doesn't even do anything, she'll just sit there. She abandons her homework to sit behind me. I don't really sit at my desk too often anymore because of this very reason. DJ also has a job that she has to get to by 8 a.m. every week, which means that I typically get woken up very early. I usually just roll over and try to get some extra sleep. A couple of times now though, I've actually woken up to DJ staring at me. One time she was about a foot away from the bed and just staring. She also makes a point to look at me whenever she leaves. But it doesn't end there. I'm utterly disgusted by hair, right? Like it actually makes me sick to my stomach whenever I see hair all over the floor. Well, DJ has this really long curly red hair, which is fine, only she sheds so much hair that I've seen her actually sit there and pull her hair out. Okay, whatever. But one day I decided that I wanted to wash my sheets. I don't even sleep with my sheets. I'll typically only sleep with a throw blanket or only my comforter. I really never go under my sheets, but I do lay on top of them, so they still deserve to be washed. When I pulled back the sheet, I was then met with strings of DJ's long curly hair. I nearly threw up over it. I have no idea how it got there, and I'm not really sure I want to know. But hold on, it gets better. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, DJ and I share the same class together. Whenever class ends, she sits there and waits for me to pack up my notebooks and things, and then we walk back to our room together. Only, here's what's strange. She never tries to talk to me. She usually just walks like about 2 feet right behind me. By itself, that probably seems kind of normal, but with everything else, it just sort of feels like she's watching me. Perhaps not the creepiest story out there, but still very unnerving for me personally. Over a year ago, I'd gone to bed with my boyfriend, and after a few minutes I heard my cat jump up on the windowsill behind us and then start hissing. Now, the cat growled and meowed a lot, but never ever hissed, so I propped myself up and looked out the window expecting to see another cat. Instead, however, I saw a man in a ski mask standing just to the left of the window, not looking in at that moment, but appeared to be examining the window itself. I lowered myself back down and tapped my boyfriend and whispered that there was a man right outside. He then sat up very slowly and looked out, then whipped open the window and then yelled, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" The man then said,
Oh, me? I'm just looking around.
to which my boyfriend called BS and then tried to jump out of the window. But I had some poles set in to ironically discourage a break-in if I ever left my window cracked, so it was way too narrow for him to jump out. My boyfriend sprinted out the front door instead to chase him, but whoever it was got away. He was so upset that he escaped and that he wasn't able to stop him. We're not together anymore, but I miss that man every day, and I'm really thankful for everything he did for me.